So the night was pretty nice overall. Clear skies, usual Bay Area haze going on through there as well. But definitely good enough to see M5 better than I have in the last couple weeks, especially from the back deck where I do most of my observing. I started out in the sketchbook after finding the object by using the white charcoal pencil and just sort of defining the size and shape as I usually do. I generally have a fair amount of strokes, like kind of line strokes going through here, but for the most part, using the smudge tool, I can kind of get it smoothed out fairly decently. Through here, I was finding that I was having a hard time getting it smooth and then layering on top. I think that there was something maybe on the smudge tool that was like an old color pencil or something like that that was making it greasy or something. So I ended up actually erasing the whole thing and starting over because of that. And before starting my next drawing, I just took my X-Acto and cut off the tip of it a little bit, sharpen up the edge, but also primarily to get whatever gunk was on there off of it. I don't usually cut the stuff right on top of the drawing surface, but figured I'd do it there so everyone could see exactly what was going on. After getting the alignment back into place, I just spent a little bit of time observing, trying to get my bearings and see exactly what kind of like that primary shape was of the center bright area of the nebula. And then went about doing the same thing I did before, but just kind of smoothing it out, smudging it out, trying to get about the right shape and the feeling of the fading out through those edges. Especially in the beginning, I tend to take a fair amount of time at the eyepiece as well. One thing I didn't put into the video was about 10 minutes, 15 maybe, of just pure observing beforehand, just so I could kind of get a sense of just how much I could see. I will say, as I was going through this too, that I started to lose a little bit of the detail. The sky was starting to haze up a little bit more, which was unfortunate because the first like 5 minutes the viewing was perfect. The seeing was perfect. I felt like I could see maybe 100 or hundreds of stars definitely within there. And it settled out into more of just an overall haze by the time I started drawing. So yeah, basically it's just a lot of layering on top right now, getting that overall general shape through there. Constantly referring back to just get the little details of sort of like where the brightest areas are and see if there's any sections that feel like it could be refined a little bit underneath where the stars are going to end up going. At this point, I think I'm just trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing, but I was going to start getting into some of the star dots, but then I think I realized that there was just a little bit more definition to do within the overall brightness of the nebula. And then also, this is something that I've been doing lately, which is just kind of taking a little bit of time before drawing in the stars to kind of mark out the darker areas as well. All of these globular clusters seem like there's kind of sections of darker areas. Sometimes they kind of feel like dark lanes or spots, or just kind of like areas that just aren't as bright. I do feel like sometimes the eye plays tricks a little bit on me. I think in the podcasts there was some conversation about like using if you move your gaze away from the object and you still see whatever it is that you thought it was, that it probably isn't there. So I do that a fair amount to just try and make sure that whatever I'm seeing is there. Okay, so now that that kind of core brightness is in, I switched over to the 0.5 brisk pen, the gel pen, and started to mark out all of the major stars that I'm seeing within the nebula. Oh, sorry, not the nebula, the globular. I knew that in the beginning I wanted to kind of detail out those, that there's a bit of like a line of an L of stars. In like in the reversed image of the daub, it kind of like goes out to the left and then down. So I started my drawing a little bit more to the right because of that. I find that this 0.5 is really nice because the brighter stars I'll just spend a little more time, make the star a little bit larger, and then the dimmer stars I'll just kind of pinpoint it with a single dot. And there was a period of time where I was doing my first pass with this brush pen, not necessarily because of the brush thing, but more because it would create a dot that was sort of like semi-opaque, so it felt like a soft faded star, and then I would go in and then kind of brighten them up with the brisk. But the pen that I'm using for that right now isn't quite as sharp in the point as I'd like it to be. So this dark spot here is just like I was starting to get some of the cluster of the little stars in there, but I was having a hard time seeing them. So I turned off the light for a little bit and just spent some time here observing in the dark so that I could get my night vision fully back. And then after a minute or so, I was able to really make out some of the more specifics of there. But then I also noticed that there were some of the dispersion of the brightness I wasn't really capturing in the drawing. So I went back and tweaked that a little bit, and then went back to observing again, regaining my night vision through here. I think this might be a fairly longer period of darkness. Well, not too bad, I guess. Easier in the slow-mo, or in the super fast speed, I mean. Okay, so after spending some time looking through all that, I just sort of went at it. I had enough time to kind of get a sense of how wide out the star, the really like tiny little dot stars were, and kind of where the main areas were. I was noticing it primarily in the bottom left, and then like kind of a smaller section in the upper right. And then I knew that I didn't want to go too much farther out than sort of like the main brighter stars, three in a line across the center area. So I was just digging into those for a while before returning to the eyepiece. Then here I'm just like kind of filling out a few more of those specific stars that I'm seeing. So a lot of back and forth going through here, the eyepiece and the drawing. These globulars definitely take a little bit of time with all the dots. I have to say, I'm not totally confident quite yet about the defining the exact shape that I'm seeing within the globular. I feel like in general, they either come out a little too sparse, as in the case of some of the ones that I had done a few days ago. I think you had commented on one of those. It was the M92 that I had done on the 12th of April from a darker site. It was Mount Diablo, I think. No. That was Pinnacles. Yeah. Anyway, those felt maybe a little sparse compared to what I was seeing, and then this one I feel like I might have gone a little too dense. Still kind of trying to hone that in a little bit. But yeah, most of the time now through this middle section is really just sort of trying to define the tiny little dots through there. A lot of just kind of back and forth with the eyepiece and kind of like getting a lot of those little dots. I switched over right now to the black charcoal, because I was feeling like there was a section up on the top right that was getting a little too full of stars. And looking through the eyepiece, it definitely felt like there were, if not dark lanes, just sort of like a fainter area through there. So just kind of reducing some of the stars in that area with the black charcoal. And then I kind of went back over it a little bit, kind of redefined a few stars within the area so that it just blended together a little bit nicer. At this point, I felt like it would be good to do a little bit more of a side-by-side comparison with the eyepiece. So I'll put, like, my right eye up to the eyepiece. My left eye will be kind of looking more at the image, the drawing itself. Or sometimes I'll just like kind of close one eye and then switch to the other and look back and forth within the view without having to kind of move my eyes around a lot. And I find that that's very helpful in terms of seeing if the scale is right and if I'm kind of hitting the overall shape well. And I think when I was doing that, I was feeling that I was missing some of the contrast of the brighter stars, so I was refining that and then checking it again. I think probably finding that this is decent enough. Then moving on to hit some of the more subtle kind of, I don't know what it is, dusty things or cloud things or whatever it is that kind of lights up some of the areas around the globular. I'm kind of wondering if part of me feels like this should be defined on the earlier side. Another part of me, I've tried doing it before on the earlier side, but it's a little hard to really um, get the proportions right. So I've been kind of going back and forth about when when to do this within the process. Here I'm having a little bit of a hard time just kind of smoothing out that one section. It either was showing a line too much or it was too faint. And then like, I don't know if you ever had this thing where like the smudge tool, you use it so much that it starts erasing instead of smudging. But anyway, I got it figured out. Checking those kind of like misty areas now, making sure that the amount feels about right. Yeah, I had done another drawing of M5 just like a couple days earlier, so I was flipping back and forth just to see sort of like, did I get it about the same or not? I felt pretty good with where it was here, so started writing in some of the information. I didn't put in a ton for this one. I was getting a little tired. But I think as I was finishing it up, I wanted to like get one last, really good look at it, make sure that I wasn't missing anything. So I turned the light off again and just spent a fair amount of time here observing in the dark, really taking it back in again, just enjoying looking at the cluster and appreciating it a little bit, kind of getting into that mindset of just pure observation for a while. I find that it's helpful to do this and just sort of change out of like the sketch mindset for a little bit. When I turned the light back on, I did feel like there were some subtleties within that was missing. So I switched over to that brush pen that I was talking about, which gives a little bit of a fainter look to the stars, and filled out a little bit more of the mass with this subtle thing, just to make it. My hope was to sort of like blend the area a little bit better between the really pinpoint bright stars that the brisk does versus having kind of that background layer of softer stars. I think it worked out fairly decently. So a lot of this is just sort of like, getting that mass, getting that feeling of like kind of evenly spreading out and dispersing as it gets farther away from the center of the globular. I'm always a little hesitant with these outer stars here too. I mean, I feel like, well, I didn't really see them, but uh, at the same time, it kind of feels like they might be there. So yeah, got all that stuff in. Took another beat here to just observe in the dark and kind of like another check, see if things are feeling right or not. Let's see. Yep, I guess I'm happy. We're just tired. And that was the end of it. All right, hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully there was some stuff in there that was helpful. I think I'm going to try and do another one uh, that's a little more close up so you can see a little more of the detail because I'm not quite sure that this one captured all of the specificity that I was hoping it would. Cheers.